Hello and welcome to the Mastermind, Body, and Spirit Show. I'm your host, Matt Belair. As you know, we are facing extreme censorship alongside many other truth seekers out there. If you want to support the show, please go over to mattbelair.com and sign up for the email list. Join the Academy for exclusive and censorship-free content. Become a patron, and most importantly, consider doing 3 kind acts wherever you are in the world today. Today's guest is a professional certified coach who specializes in executive leadership and career coaching. She is the author of the new book, The Golden Rule, The Professional Perfectionist's Guide to Greater Emotional Intelligence, a More Fulfilling Career, and a Better Life. Welcome to the show, Emily Golden.
Hello, Matt. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you here. I'm excited to talk about your work and your book. I really love the intention whenever I get a PR company reach out that kind of do the points, like the talking points. And I just love the intention of your book. I think it's something that's very needed in the world right now, especially at higher levels of, executive or, people are looking to be career people, but, adding a little bit of a greater some people call it vocation, but like meaning and fulfillment to it, because it always is of service to other people. So anyway, I'd love for you to just introduce yourself to the audience and let them know a little bit about the book and how you got to where you are today.
Sure. So I am Emily Golden. I'm actually a master certified coach, and that is just in. So I was promoted from a professional certified coach to a master certified coach, which
Congrats.
Is notable because only 4% of certified coaches in the world actually hold this distinction. And I share that because I am so proud of this accomplishment. I hold the profession of professional coaching in such high esteem. And I believe that like any other industry, it's so important that we that there be some parameters around it. So yes, master certified coach. I specialize in executive leadership and career coaching. And that might be a little bit of a mouthful, but essentially I work with professionals. And the reason I work with professionals is because I myself spent 17 years climbing the corporate ladder in human resources, in large organizations. And by every measure, I was successful. But the secret was that I was really unhappy inside. I wouldn't say I was miserable inside, because I had a wonderful family and I had all the things that on the outside that I really desired. But professionally, something was missing. And every time I got a promotion, which I thought, this is going to be it. Now I'm making more money, or I have the bigger title, or like this is going to finally fulfill me. I would actually feel more empty. And I had a few things that happened along the way that were kind of these little aha moments. I always say the universe first started throwing me pebbles, and then rocks, and then bigger rocks, and eventually boulders, until I couldn't ignore it. So in 2010, my daughter, who at the time was 5, was out of the blue, really not out of the blue, but it seemed like it. But in hindsight, it wasn't. But she was diagnosed with a neurological condition called Tourette syndrome. And I knew nothing about Tourette syndrome. I also knew nothing about there being anything wrong with my child. Like everything seemed totally normal. And I was really career driven and ambitious. And I had 2 children at the time. And this diagnosis gutted me. Not because I think I was so fearful of what the future would hold, but it was that moment of like, I'm going to be miserable at work, and then I'm going to come home and be faced with this challenge that I don't know anything about. Like, I've got to now learn all of this, this whole world. And there were so many unknowns, and I was thrust into the land of uncertainty, which turns out we live in the land of uncertainty, but I had kind of perfected controlling life, which I now know. So that started me on this journey. Fast forward, my son was diagnosed with the same condition 3 years later. And at that point, it was like, obvious that I needed to do something different. I was at that point pretty soul crushed and miserable inside. Ironically, performing even better than I ever had at work. Kind of used my negative, some of my negative energy. I like put it into work. In 2015, in January of 2015, I woke up and said, I cannot do this anymore. I absolutely must. I must find a way to be more satisfied professionally. And I had done everything I possibly could to set my children up for success. And I'm so grateful and privileged to be able to get them the resources that they are thriving now. But I wanted to show them and to really show myself that it was possible to love the work I did. And it was in 2015 that I started to explore what was next for me through coaching. Well, turns out I fell in love with coaching. And the rest is history. I did not plan on leaving my very nice, my very well-paying corporate job where I was director of talent acquisition at a $3 billion chemical company, taking names and numbers. I did not plan on leaving that to start my own thing as fast as I did. But once I started building my own business, I realized that I actually am an entrepreneur, that I'm a incredibly creative person who has opinions and thoughts about this world of self, getting to know self. Within a year of starting to study coaching and building a business on the side, I officially hung my shingle. And I'm making it sound easy. It wasn't. I had a husband I had to get on board. We had big bills to pay. I had a lot of, I'm a coach. So I worked inside of like, I have to set up this project and I have to meet certain milestones. But it has been the most fulfilling journey. And where I am today is that I have found that it is the relationship that I have with myself that informs the relationship I have with everything else in my life. And the lights went on when I discovered that. And I realized I can build that relationship with myself. I can actually do that work. And that's something I have control over. I can give that to myself. And once I started to kind of to fill myself up and to stop looking at to the outside for validation and reassurance, I became so much more satisfied. My mindset was so much healthier. And my life just started to shift as a result. And I wanted to bring this forth to not just the people that I get to coach in my practice and in the companies that I work with, but to anyone who's interested in reading about the new golden rule, which I can absolutely tell you about.
Wow. Well, that sounds like an amazing story. I'm a father, and you always want the best for your children. And so, especially if you're thrown into a situation where you just don't know anything about it, it's just so frightening and so challenging. So, and then I can just imagine you live in the corporate life, and then you get in the corporate paycheck. So you got probably the corporate symbols in the driveway that still need to be paid off. So it's just like, well, you bought this now if you're going to make it work, where there's a big transition. So yeah, there's a lot that I'd love for you to talk about, like, how you define the golden rule, and you talk about, connecting with the golden self. So I'm curious, a lot of people on the podcast have talked about their higher self or their intuition or their inner knowing. And I feel like everything that you're talking about, getting very clear on who you are, your relationship with yourself, and what you do as a vocation are all very imperative. And so I'd love your take on all those things.
So to play on the golden, because I am Emily Golden and I wrote the book, The New Golden Rule, I had golden handcuffs. And right, like the cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. And that was a very hard thing to walk away from. And it was scary. And I was defining myself by the income I was generating. There is absolutely no question about that. The new golden rule turns conventional wisdom on its head. So the old golden rule says to treat others the way you want to be treated. And it occurred to me that that is as I was in process with, I have this book baby idea, like this idea of the old golden rule was like, it's so other focused. It's like all about what you get back from other people. And it is a breeding ground for disappointment. It's a setup for feeling disappointed and becoming righteous and disempowered. It's essentially handing off your power. And so I thought, well, everything I do in my work is about supporting individuals to get to know themselves and to first take care of themselves, because it's only once we can take care of ourselves that we're really able to support powerfully the people in our world, whether it's the team we work with at work or our families, right, or our friends. So the new golden rule says to treat yourself the way you want others to treat you. So you often will hear people talk about this inner critic, it's like this negative critical voice in your mind. And one of the antidotes is, well, how would a friend talk to you? What would a friend say to you about that, that missed deadline, or that thing that you're scared about or concerned about or worried about? And so that's what I mean by like treating yourself the way that you want others to treat you, a friend to treat you, to talk to yourself kindly. I am going to assert, not knowing your listeners, that every single one of them has an inner critic that is narrating how they could have done things differently, or how they could have improved. And this voice, so I actually call this a survival self, or a survival instinct, survival mechanism. This part of self, this critic, is not all bad. It's just that we have learned in our culture to turn the volume up so high that we only often listen to this critical, protective voice. The golden self is, as you assumed, is highest and best you. It's the essence of who you truly are. It's the you that you've always been. It's what shows up when you show up. It's what's missing when you leave the room. And it's the thing that my clients show up in a coaching partnership with me, and they are often disconnected from. It's like it's so simple and it's so obvious to me, and yet to them it's like, they're kind of blind to it. So the first thing we do in our process is get clear on who they are, at their golden self. And I walk you through the process in my book.
That sounds amazing. I love that. And I totally agree. It's funny because I remember one of Wayne Dyer's talks back in the day, and he said he's playing tennis with one of his friends, and his friend's like missed the shot or something. And he goes, "Oh, you idiot." And Wayne goes, "Hey, you don't talk to my friend like that." And I always thought that was hilarious. And we are pretty ruthless in our minds. And so I always love to ask the how. And I like in your book, like in what they gave me, the talking points is really cool because it's all processes. And I have a background in peak performance and all these different things. So it has to work. You know what I mean? I'll try it and I'll do it, but there needs to be a process or something I can apply. And you have a few in there. So I'm wondering if, the 3-step process for total life improvement, that's amazing. I'm sold on that. And the 4 most important components of emotional intelligence, I think that's so important too, because what I think has happened when we talk about golden handcuffs or our work that you're not passionate about, it's mind first, and there's no heart in there. And I think that if we can put the heart and the spirit and the soul first, and then let the mind figure it out, it's a much more pleasant journey. The people that I've been speaking with lately in coaching, it's the same idea where they're like, okay, I'm going to do this thing that's certain. But even that's not certain. Even if you get the most certain job, historically, maybe insurance and different things, like they're pretty secure, but it's still not nothing is certain, right? But if you flip it and you go heart first, think about vocation and like that emotional side, that inspiring side of you, and then use all your wisdom, all your tools, all your mindsets, everything you can do to create it. I find it's usually a more fulfilling experience. And I'd love for you to speak on any of that.
Woo! There's so much there. So first off, I will say as I was thinking about reinventing myself, I did think about becoming a therapist. I am very open about this in my book. In fact, my book is one third my journey, kind of weaved throughout, one third client vignettes, and one third my coaching process. But I talk about that I was on the couch at 9. I had learning disabilities, and my mom was a very forward thinker back in the day. And she was like, I think her self-esteem is being impacted. Let's get her into therapy. So I am extremely practiced. By the time I graduated college, I knew myself in a way that most of my friends did not know themselves, right? I was practiced in self-awareness. And so when I thought maybe I'll go back and get my PhD and become a therapist, I was really struggling because though I had wonderful experiences in therapy, for me as a corporate person and very process oriented, it felt like, what do I do from here? It was like, I am actually healed. Yes, I have anxiety that I deal with, but I'm in a healed state. Like, is there like action or something that I could be taking? And that's where coaching was like the aha, like the moment the lights went on, because coaching takes a skilled coach takes the ability to generate awareness and the ability to create action that is heart centered. And that's the thing that generates transformation. Now, you need to have both, right? So it's like having the skill is super, super important for the coach. But that's kind of the thing that drew me to coaching. So absolutely, to the first part of what you said, I definitely use a process. I love process. And I'm also super flexible about process, because I have one client who moved through the process very quickly, and I have another client that's moving through much more slowly, and there is no right and wrong. I am not here to judge. It is their process, right? So I want to be clear that I'm flexible with that. As far as the 3-step process, so the first step of the 3-step process is to identify golden self from survival self, to really get clear on who you are, highest and best, and then what is that automatic survival mechanism that is part of the reason you're probably successful, and also part of what gets in your way. So once we identify that, then from there we can create a safe space to have the clients step into, and in my book, again, I outline this, to step into that golden self, to then get clear on the vision. Where is it that you're going? And I also want to be clear about the vision, because visions change. It's not so much about the exact form of the vision, it's the essence of what you want your life to look like. To get clear on that, to get clear on the values, what's most important to you, and what is it that like, if you were to run life through the things that are important to you through a filter. Like for me, my top 2 values are generosity and intuition. Everything in my life needs to be run through the filter of, is this generous? Is this generous of heart? Is this generous of spirit? And what does my intuition say? And so that second part, again, is the vision and the values. And then the third part of the process is, this is where we actually put the roadmap together. So how to create this life, this career of satisfaction. And what are the milestones in order to get there? What are some of the things that we're going to be taking on along the way, or that you're going to be taking on along the way? And I weave emotional intelligence into the book. I personally believe that emotional intelligence is the most critical component of the coaching process, in my opinion. And it's because IQ, intellectual quotient, is fixed, and there's stats out there that say anywhere from 18 to 25, but it, as an adult, your IQ is fixed, right? You can learn skills, abilities, and you can gain knowledge, but you can't move your IQ. EQ, emotional quotient, emotional intelligence, is absolutely movable, pliable, and growable. And what we know, especially in the professional world, is that what sets people apart in success isn't actually IQ at a certain in certain spaces. So in like the companies that I play in and the people that I work with, there's generally an IQ above average, right? But it's the EQ that is the difference maker. And so if I can support my client to measurably move that, and I use a particular assessment called the EQI 2.0, it's like, I mean, it's mind blowing what the transformation that we're able to witness.
That sounds amazing. I love all that. And when you're talking about kind of the vision, the way that I describe it to people, and my perception anyway, is like you can create life by default. You're not really thinking about what you're doing. You might be doing what's secure, and you're just not being cognizant. But once you're like, oh, I'm going to start designing this thing, it's not an end goal because you always evolve. If you write your book or you become an entrepreneur, once you get to one stage, there's going to be another stage, and you're going to have new skills, so you'll be able to see further. So I feel like it's more of like coordinates. Most people don't know if they're going north, east, south, or west. So once you start lining those all up with your values and what's most important to you and how you want to contribute and all these things that fulfill you, the journey is much more rewarding. So I definitely agree. And I love that. And I think that the vision unfolds. The question I'd love to ask you is, if you can define the survival self a little bit, is that my perception of like just the default you, or like how you're trying to be like I imagine a squirrel and he's just collecting nuts over and over, you know what I mean? He's just got so much, collecting nuts as much as he can. And then the thing I want to throw in there as well that I think is that I'm curious about immediately is, how do we build our emotional intelligence? Give us the best tools for building that emotional intelligence, because I think it's something that is so rarely talked about. And when people do talk about it, is in very vague terms. You know what I mean? I never get like, with fitness, if I want strong legs, I can do squats. I understand that squats are effective. So if we're talking about emotional intelligence, I'm curious some things that we could do, or the listeners can anyway, to boost it.
Sure. Excuse me. So, the first question was around the survival self. So you are absolutely correct. It is that automatic default autopilot. My survival self is a perfectionist. She's a people pleaser. Now, she's never going away. She has gotten me jobs and will continue to support me in certain ways. She's not bad. She's not wrong. If I'm taking my guidance from her though, my potential is capped. Yeah. Like I will only reach a certain potential. If I were living from perfectionism and people pleasing, and my other flavor is control and manage. I love to control and manage the crap out of things. I'm a control enthusiast, as we say. And so if I were to live my life from that place, there would be no book. I would never have gone out on my own, right? I probably wouldn't be doing this podcast, right? So it's not, we all have a survival self. The question is, what does your flavor look like? And for some people, it's like angry and righteous, and we have fun with it. When I work with clients and I talk about this in the book, we name it, we have fun with it. But it's knowing who your survival self is, and then who you are, golden self, highest and best, and then applying the choice. Where do I want to come from in this moment? Clearly, I have chosen with the important areas of my life, I'm coming from my golden self. That is reliably and consistently where I choose to come from as a parent, as a partner, as a daughter, as a sister, as a professional, right? That is where I choose to come from as a coach. And my survival self is there. She's there along for the ride. And I don't make her bad or wrong. I just make sure she has room to play so that she doesn't throw me off track. But I love what you said. And I like to think of it in terms of the comfort zone. This book, the New Golden Rule, wasn't even outside my comfort zone when I first started my work. Meaning I had a comfort zone and then I saw certain things outside my comfort zone. Like I could peek out of my comfort zone and say, being an entrepreneur is outside my comfort zone. Generating multi six figures on my own, outside my comfort zone. Relating to myself as a boss, somewhat outside my comfort zone. But as my comfort zone has increased and those things have fallen inside, all of a sudden I'm like peeking out now and a book. Oh, look at that. Now it's like, oh, okay, I'm building a firm. Now I have a firm of coaches that I'm working with. It's like, it's purely magical. But I don't need to know exactly how. I just need to know the essence of what I'm creating. And I need to trust and give it up to the divine, right? Like whatever it is you believe in. I always say to my clients, I don't care what you believe in. Believe. You must believe. This is about you, others, and some other spirit. Because this is my own opinion, right? There's something that is there's like a weight that when we can share it with the divine or whoever, it makes life so much more bearable. It's truly what got me through the early days with my daughter.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I think technically this podcast registers in religion and spirituality, and I've heard many different ways to connect with whatever people consider to be divine or spirit or God or nature or universe. The indigenous elders I always talk with, they will always say creator. And I feel like it's something that you work with, because there's also others, but it's like this universal force, you know what I mean? And almost every successful person that I know of value works with that. Nobody that I know is like, hey, I don't participate, or I don't believe that there's something assisting me. But I think it's almost like this human nature, human spirit, because when we're going on our own and we're creating our life from fulfillment and from service and from contribution, nature or the universe or God or whatever you want to say, it's going to support that because it's life affirming. It is cooperative with all other things, so I think it's such an important thing to be working with and be cognizant of. And I feel like that's part of when you have these handcuffs or you're not creating life deliberately, you almost feel like a cog in the wheel. You know what I mean? That you're disempowered and you're disconnected. And that's not true. It's just kind of remembering this, you know what I mean? And then starting to work with it. And then like, oh, whoa, there is something, you know what I mean? There is some sort of thing, and you get to experience that directly. I want to, I don't know if you answered it, but when we're talking about emotional intelligence, is there some tools that people can use? Because I feel like part of that too, I'm imagining the Grinch or something, or one of those other movies where when you're not inspired and you're kind of going through the motions, your heart and your energy and your emotions are small. You're grumpy, you don't have belief in anything, you hate everybody because you don't have any time, you're in a rush, everything sucks, because the emotions aren't high. But when your heart is big and it's open and you're creating and you're connecting to everything and you're having a little bit more faith and a little bit more trust, you're a lot more open and it just feels better. And that's a much better emotion. And so when we look at the emotional scale, you can go from depression to despair to hopelessness to why am I even doing this? And that's not a very great place to be. So I feel like if we can learn to climb up that scale a little bit, it also improves our vision and we become more optimistic, right? Like when you look at the comfort zone, I think that everybody is capable of pretty much whatever they can set their mind to, but they look at it, they go, oh no, that's not possible. I'm not going to do that. I remember one client I work with, he's like, I can't do any push-ups, and this is kind of a technical hack that I had. He's like, yeah, I can't do more than 5. I was like, okay, well, what I want you to do is just do 1 throughout the day. And then when that comes easy, do 2 and then do 3 and 4. 2 days later, he's like, yeah, I can do 25 in a row. And I was like, see, it's like a process mixed with consistency, but immediately his brain said not possible. And I feel like that little bit of consistency applied to anything, you're going to yield some amazing results.
Yeah. So thank you for reminding me of that question. So what can people do materially to improve emotional intelligence? So in my book, I talk about 4 areas of emotional intelligence: self-awareness, emotional expression, interpersonal relationships, and stress tolerance. Self-awareness is recognizing and understanding one's own emotions. So understanding subtleties in emotions, what's causing emotions, and the impact of your emotions on your thoughts, as well as on others. So in terms of self-awareness, there are a few go-tos. Number one, and you can Google that. Anyone can Google this, the feelings wheel. So I love me a good, colorful feelings wheel with many, many, many different feelings. And so sometimes when a client comes to me and is really, this is an area that we're really working on, I'll have them print out a feelings wheel and keep it by their desk, or in a place they look frequently, and check in with themselves a few times throughout the day. What are you feeling now? And the way the feelings wheel works is the feelings expand from the center. So it's like it has like groups of feelings. So one is identify the feeling. Another thing, and this kind of applies across the board with improving emotional intelligence, is being able to sit with yourself, to just be with yourself. So you might you think meditation. And my clients are A+ personalities, and I can't tell you how many times I hear, I don't meditate, I can't meditate, I don't know how to meditate, I don't do it well. Meditation is not meant to be done well. You don't get a grade for meditating. And meditation is not this complicated situation. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. So, like 30 seconds, a minute, sit quietly and scan your body. Be with you. Be with you. Where do you feel tension in your body? Release it, right? So, I kind of beat this drum, and this is also something that I work on myself, just taking a few moments every day, a few minutes or however long it is, to connect with myself, build that self-awareness. Emotional expression, openly expressing one's feelings verbally and non-verbally. I often will work with individuals or come across individuals who have learned to snuff out their expression of emotions. And this is not necessarily like a male female thing, by the way. This is just like a learned behavior. And it can be, we don't really worry about when the person learned to do it, but there's an impact, right? There's an impact to not expressing yourself. There's an impact to withholding. And so one of the things I'll do around emotional expression is I'll challenge my client to watch TV and to like take notes on like watching someone, what the person is expressing, because actresses are very expressive. And that often will support the process of building muscle around emotional expression. This one's a little more elusive, but I feel like there's a great, we can watch videos and we can see this in action. Emotional expression is also one that I work on building with vulnerability. So my clients or people I talk to are like, what's this vulnerability thing? I keep hearing vulnerability. What the heck does it mean? How do you model vulnerability? Get my book. I had a client I worked with for a while who was like, I don't get it. And, we did a lot of work with Brene Brown stuff. And after he read the book, he's like, I get it. I get it. It's opening your heart. It's sharing, not for anything in return, but just showing I am human, right? And it invites a human conversation. So be vulnerable. The next emotional intelligence area is interpersonal relationships. So this skill is developing and maintaining mutually satisfying relationships with trust and compassion. So interpersonal relationships, can't talk enough about how important this area is. How do you work on building this? first of all, get real with yourself about how deep your relationships are today. Like, is there truly trust and compassion? Are you truly feeling compassion for the other person? And just a little warning, if you aren't feeling compassion for you, chances are high in your interpersonal relationships you're not feeling much compassion for the other person. You've got to know it yourself in order to be able to have it for someone else. So working, building that self-awareness is important, but also just practicing in relationships. Trust is a gift. Trust is a gift, and it is a gift. Like, I hear you to earn my trust, and I don't give away my trust, and it's like, work on that relationship with trust. And there's absolutely a lot of people have work to do around the trust issue, and it gets in the way of interpersonal relationships, and especially in the workplace. This really really comes up, and a lot of times I'll suggest that someone ask themselves, if I trusted this person, what would I do next? If I trusted, what would be possible here? And then the last is stress tolerance, coping with stressful or challenging situations and believing that you can manage or influence situations in a positive manner. Obviously, this is an area that is an opportunity for many of us, right? Stress tolerance. In addition to the things that I have shared already, one thing that is it's talked about, but I don't think it's talked about enough, is the impact of moving your body on stress. Stress is a buildup of energy, and it needs to be released. So get out and move. If you stand, I'm actually sitting right now, but I've been standing all day. Stand, move, stretch. There's a reason that if you look at animals like dogs, cats, like they are constantly stretching and pulling, right? The energy needs to be moved around. So move your body. You don't need to adopt a 90-minute yoga practice. There's nothing wrong with that, by the way, but move, get out and move.
I love all that. It's super all encompassing and very practical, with my favorite things. So and it's all something people can apply right away. There's so many other questions that I would ask you. I know that our time is limited, but all of this has been really just helpful. And I think that when it, like I said at the beginning, when there's a tool that can be applied and you have like, oh, this is the understanding of it, you're also creating like these markers, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, I can put these markers here and I can move towards that, and then it's common sense, but it's not something that is commonly talked about, especially in the corporate world. Like some of the language, I have a lot of different guests on from different fields, and it's like, your tune on it is a lot to the corporate world, because they may be like, meditation, like, what is that? You know what I mean? It's like this crazy thing. It's like, well, it's not that complicated. And it will help de-stress you, because I can see you're very stressed. And so, this work is very important, because I feel like the more, I don't know how to define that, but the more maybe corporate or, 9 to 5, people can really just kind of get out of touch with this. And if they just start to apply it a little bit, they can make that experience much more pleasant. Even with the movement and a little bit of mindfulness and understanding your emotional intelligence, and it improves the relationships right in the office, and all these different other things that are really game changing. So I definitely love everything that you shared. Is there anything that you wish that I'd asked, or that you'd like to discuss before I let you go? I know you want to play with your kids before they go to bed.
Well, the one thing I would say is that I'm particularly passionate about working with professionals and the corporate world, because I love working with people who are in communities and bringing this work into communities, because like working with one individual, then in like connecting to a larger community or a larger system, that's where you really see the impact. And so, and having been stifled myself probably by much of my own doing in my own professional career, it's so important to me that this work be brought forth. I believe wholeheartedly that if we can just apply a little bit more kindness to ourselves and give ourselves a little bit more room to take risks and room to fall and fail and support one another in the corporate world, the possibility is endless, right? Like there is so much more room for humanity. So that's the one thing I would add. And the new golden rule is that simple marker. Treat yourself the way you want others to treat you. Treat yourself the way you want others to treat you. Every morning and every night, I ask myself, how did I do? How did I do at this? When I falter, my husband now will ask me. It's funny. My kids will say sometimes if they see someone who's having a rough day, or sometimes they'll see a soccer coach on the sideline, maybe getting a little energetic, if you will, too energetic. Mommy, I think he or she needs the new golden rule. So apply it. Simple, and it works.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. Where can people find the book or explore your work if they want to dive a little bit deeper?
The new goldenrule.info is the website that has all the information about the book, where you can buy it, how you can find out more about the work that I'm doing with my company, Golden Resources, out in the world. And that's it. Simple one-stop shop.
Amazing. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show. I loved it. And I encourage people to go check out your work, and just thanks for what you're sharing and doing in the world.
Thank you so much for what you're doing too, Matt. It was great to be with you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks guys for watching. We'll see you later.